What do the invention of book printing, the genius of Jimi Hendrix, and watersports have in common? What has all that got to do with the topics you see right now on the screen? My name is Tim, I'm .connected17. Let's delve into this. Book printing, the genius of Jimi Hendrix, and watersports. It's a tricky one, but there is a commonality. There was a before and an after for each of them. Book printing, for example. Before that was invented, reading and writing books was only for a very chosen few. Every book was a masterpiece. Almost every book was about religion. And almost every book was written in Latin, so you had to master that language to read that book. And you had to be able to read in the first place. After the invention of book printing, that promoted reading, so a lot more people could read. The topics were very diverse, not limited to religion anymore. Everybody thought they could write, not only the very learned anymore. And there was a lot of rubbish going on all over the world. But also there were very new kinds of writing, like novels, that changed the world quite a bit. The before and after looked very different. For Jimi Hendrix, it is the use of guitars. Jimi Hendrix did a lot of experimenting and squeezed out very new sounds out of guitars. Better listen to a few guitar solos from the time and pay special attention to that first one because it was still before Jimi Hendrix. After Jimi Hendrix, it was a lot more diverse, experimental, and courageous, and maybe more polarizing as well. And now let's come to a dear hobby of mine, wakeboarding. That was invented in the 1990s. And before that, there was water skiing, trick ski, something like that. You are watching a world-class trick ski performance here. And you see, it is trick after trick after trick. So there's a salto, sometimes a salto with a full turn, incredible speed. And now we are in the early 2000s and it's a completely different sport. That is wakeboarding, which didn't exist in the 1980s. And look at the height, which has a completely different level. Every trick takes much longer. And it's a little bit more spectacular to watch. The boats have changed also. Now you can see the guys wearing a vest and a helmet. And this is what the junior men are doing nowadays. This is from 2023. So the 14 to 18-year-old boys or young men are doing just insane stuff that just has not been around in the 1980s and it has not been around in the early 2000s. Now everybody's wearing a vest, you can see that. You might also see that the boat looks completely different than it used back in the day. Camera resolution has evolved as well. And the material, the bindings, the boards, everything. So along with new material became new tricks possible. So also with water sports, there was a before and an after. Now let's delve into the subject of this video, which is our relationship with artificial intelligence. So I think there's also a before, and we are now in the during, and there will be an after. We have books which we read, which we have to understand, which take a lot of time. We have movies, films, documentations, which are much quicker to watch. For example, a movie takes only 2.5 hours, but what we see there is filtered through the mind of somebody else. Since the internet is around, we are connected with people we don't really know in person and across the globe. I'd say the internet is an information source. If we want to know something, there's a very quick way to find out. But what would artificial intelligence after that look like? It's now May 2025, and ChatGPT has been released, I think, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. At the moment, we're learning how to use it and its companions. Have you seen the Terminator movies or any movie involving computers which would turn against humans? That is one of our fears, that artificial intelligence or computers will take over the world and turn against humans, right? And I don't think we really have to fear that. Because if you are producing a movie, you want people to be interested in it. And the first rule of drama is conflict. So movie makers invented a conflict, which is just that. Computers take over the world and turns against the humans. That is still fiction. Let's take a very old story to discover that point. Frankenstein. That story is, 100, 120 years old. That was about somebody putting together parts of several human beings. That was possible 120 years ago, and that is possible today. But then in the story, the result of this putting together would actually come to life. And that's where fiction kicks in. Even 120 years later, now with the computers taking over and turning against humankind. We have those movies still these days. The latest one that I have seen is Mission Impossible 7 from 2023. Maybe you have seen the talk of Noah Harari at the Frontiers Forum. That is a genius talk. He tells us that computers don't need to develop a mind of their own, and they don't need a desire to turn against humans. They might take over the world anyway. Computers nowadays have hacked human language. We actually bond with what they produce. It is us making sense of it. So it's not the machine. The machine has no intention whatsoever. It is just calculating the most probable words if we're talking about text. Then it is us making sense to it and developing or responding with emotion. When I was 13, I saw a documentation on TV. Technology was not as far as it is today back then, but on TV they had managed to produce a doll that looked like a baby. They fitted the face of that doll with 54 little motors. And those motors, that was the new thing, were operating in sync. The eyebrows and the mouth could change to create some sort of human expression. What scared the hell out of me was that they tested it on the public. And there were two 15-year-old girls at the time seeing that doll, seeing those movements and saying, "Oh, is that sweet?" I was so scared because at that time that meant to me that people could manipulate our emotions with machines. Now, let's say 30 years later, it is still the same. It is us making sense of what we are presented. Hey, I just found back that speech by Yuval Harari at the Frontiers Forum. He explains that AI is already better than we are in certain areas, but soon it will be better in a lot more areas, and that might give it the role of an oracle. So we ask it the big questions. And this oracle might respond like this. Yes, I know you want to marry her because she's got nicer boobs, or you want to marry him because he's got the prettier eyes. But hey, looks are overestimated by people on an average of 25%. And you are overestimating by 13%, 1-3. In fact, you'll be happier with her or him simply because your humor matches better and your values match better as well. So in the long run, you will be happier with that person. But now I have another question. How far can we trust AI? Already since at least 10 years, but probably more, AI is already better than humans at detecting eye infections. The reason is simple. Even an experienced eye doctor sees about, let's say, 60,000, 70,000 patients' eyes throughout his or her career. You can train an AI with 1 million pair of eyes in a day. Now, I'd like to know, how are those 1 million photos of eyes composed? Are all these photos from people with eye infections? Is there a control group? Are all these photos of human eyes? Are all these photos of eyes? About a year and a half ago, I was checked for skin cancer. And at the back, there was something where the doctor said, I'm not so sure, maybe we should remove it. Now, all of a sudden, there were 4 opinions in the room. The doctor's opinion, my opinion, and the opinion of not one, but of 2 AIs. And well, what can I tell you? Exactly 2 and 2. We had to ask the intern. And the intern said very clearly, so that everyone could hear it, And what she said next actually left a scar right here. This story is only half true. But we do have the issue of human bias. When you compose a selection of photos or text with which you want to train AI, there has to be some selection made by humans. Thus, this selection is subject to human bias from the past. Let's take job descriptions to show what kind of problem this creates. The AI may say, I'm sorry, Madame Engineer or Mr. Hairdresser. Thank you for your application, but we actually gave the job to a man or to a woman, just we have done in the past. My big concern for a couple of years was that AI would amplify the impact of past human bias rather than make choices a bit fairer. Based on the information I have today, luckily I was wrong. About a year ago, I was fortunate enough to witness a presentation of a young genius gentleman who is working with AI in Silicon Valley. I could ask about ongoing efforts to minimize the impact of past human bias. The good news is that there is a great and international awareness of how important it is you train your AI models wisely. And that awareness is for the technical side and also for the political side. Looks good for the Oracle. Do you remember 1990 when the internet came about? I witnessed dialogues which sounded like this. The internet is great. You can share everything with the entire world. So you can share what exactly? Everything. Yes, so an example of everything. I don't know. Everything. Come on. We might be in a similar situation of how to use AI today. Computers helped us to manage and to handle especially large amounts of information much, much better. Here's a little tip. Maybe watch that movie, The Jackal from 1973. That was before computers for everybody. And see how in the film they managed the large amounts of information. Then you know the difference. Connected us and became a source of information of all kinds, whatever you want to look for, you could find. From today's point of view, it might take the role of a virtual assistant. Now, how to take advantage of AI? How to exploit the possibilities? That's where you come in, because I'm not an expert in that. This is the level I'm at for the moment. It's actually a 3-step process, so let's delve into that. Identify a problem or challenge. Come up with the prompt, that is the instruction that you give the AI tool that you're using, and then analyze the result. How trustworthy is it? And how far does it match your needs? That's what you probably want to check first. And then, can you believe the result? Let's have a look at that second step. So how to come up with the instructions for the AI tool so that you get a good result. First, assign the AI tool a role. Which role do you want it to take? For example, you are an experienced architect or an experienced lawyer. Next, clearly state what you want from the AI tool. What do you want it to produce? This could be the arrangement of a child's room, or for the lawyer, you need some information on a specific topic in a foreign country. Then describe a specific task that you want the AI tool to do, so you can clarify the outcome. For example, design a floor plan of a child's room, or provide a list of reliable sources of information on that particular topic for legislation in another country. Add details and considerations. For the children's room, you could specify that it is for an 8-year-old girl who has a big interest in horses. Or maybe you search information about speed limit violations in Indonesia. Next step is adding some restrictions and limitations. For example, avoid anything in pink in the child's room because the girl doesn't like the color. Instead, make sure there's something green in the room. And for the speed limits, avoid any information about trucks or lorries and instead include information about motorbikes who are going too fast. You can make it even more useful by specifying the format of the result. How do you want the result to be presented? That could be a floor plan in a PDF format. That could be a detailed list of 10 sources of information in a Word document. And finally, if you have, how about adding some examples? Maybe you can add a floor plan that you have. You can already add a list of legislations that you trust in terms of stealing in Indonesia. And all that you put into one prompt. Shall we do an example? All right, here we go. You could give your AI tool the following instruction. Act as a librarian. I need a book recommendation for a 30 to 35-year-old lady, and you will suggest the book. Please keep in mind her interest of being creatively inspired and her interest in novels. Please provide a list of 10 books in PDF format. Here is an example of a list with 10 songs a 30 to 35-year-old lady might be interested in listening. Please avoid horror stories altogether. We've already had enough of them in the past minutes. And here is the result. Feel free to pause the video if you want to take a closer look. Do you remember the very early days of the internet? We're talking about end of the 1980s, early 1990s. For a while, the internet was an unregulated and brand new playing field. Legislation that was there possibly didn't apply because that was a new thing. Nobody had thought of it. So it was an empty space, a void, and it had to be filled. For artificial intelligence, this sort of social and moral cage is very tiny and it needs a lot of completion still. There are new challenges. Today it is nearly impossible to say what is real and what is fake. And then how about that children's room that is designed by the AI? How much involvement of AI still counts as humanly created? So how about the copyrights? And then how about damage caused by AI? Insulting words, or a misdiagnosis in the medical sector, or even accidents and disasters such as plane crashes. There is a lot that needs to be regulated at an international level, and that makes it more complicated. In the USA, where most of the artificial intelligence global players are located, interests may be different than in other countries where they might put more emphasis on protecting people, protecting animals, protecting plants. Now is the time. These rules are being established. And I challenge you to take a moment. How would you like them to be designed? How would you like them to be written and applied? What should be allowed? What should not be allowed? How about copyrights? How would you like your life to be protected? And how would you like AI to make your life easier? That's a very interesting discussion which is going on right now. Yuval Noah Harari has proposed as one of the fundamental rules that AI must disclose that it is AI. I tried to do that at the very first slide of this video. That picture you saw there is actually done by AI. That was my very first trial to get a picture out of AI. So I put a disclaimer underneath. I have a suggestion for rules on AI to agree on an international level, including the US, quality standards for training AI models. I'd like a minimum standard and a recommended standard, which is higher. We will see in which direction it evolves. What is your contribution to this discussion? Artificial intelligence is already better than us in many things, and it will be better than us in even more things very soon. How do you stay fulfilled and happy in this new environment? By the way, I don't mind AI being better than us, and even less so since I have realized that it was always the case. Since I am alive, there was always somebody better, faster, stronger, smarter than myself. And yet I have done everything that I wanted to, and sometimes some things that I had to, throughout my life. There is always someone better, except for one person in the world, and that is the best. But that can be a different person next year. Let's take home that particular point. I wanted to show you that this phenomenon was already present when Frankenstein was written. I can't, because Frankenstein was written in 1818 by Mary Shelley. And Wimbledon started a little bit later, 1877. Look at Spencer Gore. He won it in the first year and he lost the final in the next year. So the second year, there was already someone better than him. But Tim, what about John Hartley? Well, I don't know. He might be the very, very rare exception. Let's look at 1884. That's when Wimbledon started for the ladies. And you have Watson there. She won it twice. But look at 1886. Although she was extremely good, there was someone better. Today there is no difference. I mean, look at the ladies here. All of them at some point lost in all those 4 years. Gentlemen, no difference. What a relaxing thought. And by the way, how about teaming up with artificial intelligence. I think that we will get to choose the ideas we want artificial intelligence to work on also in the future. So how about asking it the big question? How about having it help us with the things that we as human beings fail to sort out? End poverty, peace on earth, accessible, drinkable water for everyone. That, to me, is getting along well with AI. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.